Imagine cybersecurity and all our career paths being expanded into space. As the space industry begins to expand, imagine us having more opportunities in that industry. That's what we talk about a little bit on this podcast. We also go into details about CCIs, STIGs, which is Security Technical Implementation Guides, and how those interact with Risk Management Framework 800 and CIS controls. Now, this is an older podcast that I did in 2020, but a lot of it is still relevant. Hope you enjoy this one. Test, audio test. All right, this is going to be a short one, I think. Welcome to Convocourses. My name is Bruce, and I want to start off by addressing, what's going on right now as far as the coronavirus and stuff. But we're going to keep it to Convocourses and cybersecurity stuff. But I know there's a lot of negative stuff happening right now as far as the protests and coronavirus. We're looking at 100,000 people reported as having died from the coronavirus. We're looking at around the world, 6 million people infected, a million at least in the U.S. And all this stuff's going on. And I want to, first of all, send condolences to the people who have passed away from the coronavirus and people who are suffering with it now. And if you happen to be out there protesting or anything like that, stay safe. That's all I'll say about that. It's a pretty heavy subject, and I don't normally address that kind of stuff on this channel. But I just want to address it and make sure everybody's being mindful, stay safe out there. This coronavirus stuff's still going on. Take it serious. At the very least, try to protect other people. You know what I mean? The people who are most vulnerable to this stuff. So, and that goes for our justice system too. Like, let's try to protect those who are vulnerable to the injustices and stuff like that. Listen, let's jump right into it. There is positive stuff happening right now, and I want to talk about that stuff that's occurring right now. Namely, I don't know if you've been watching it, but the recent astronauts coming from a commercial aircraft, commercial space vehicle, flying all the way up to the International Space Station and then linking up with it. And then this right here is really awesome because it opens up the private industry to start doing things like going to the moon, with or without the government. So that's incredible. And the reason why it's incredible for us, for IT people, information system security people especially, is because that really expands our industry. The better the technological field, the industries and technology do, the more opportunities for people like us who are IT people who are nerds, people who are geeks, IT people. We get more job opportunities, an increase of salary, and the whole 9 yards. So this is a really positive thing. And just to give you an idea of how positive this is that of since I've been out of the military, and actually in the military, I did some stuff for operations that had to do with space. But when I got out of the military, most of my jobs had to do with aerospace. Most of my jobs were with aerospace companies. So it's a huge industry, and it needs security compliance. Like, they have to follow a very strict methodology, right? And that's exactly what I do, and that's the stuff that I teach mostly. And I'll branch out to other things like certifications or more technical in the weeds type stuff. But I just wanted to address, like, the reason why this is such a positive thing is that the more commercialized, the more accessible space and aerospace, low Earth orbits, or even on the moon or Mars, the bigger and larger that industry gets, the more, mark my words, don't take my word for it, just watch history, watch what happens. As that industry expands, and we're on the moon, or we're on Mars, or we're on the wherever, low Earth orbits, they're more and more of these organizations are gonna crop up, and more of them are gonna have to hire people like you and I, IT people and security compliance people. So it's a super positive thing. I know my daughter had been up all night watching all the news about the protests and the riots and how in some cities it's going pretty bad. And she says, "Why are you watching this live feed of NASA? You know, instead of, don't you know what's going on?" And I said, "Hey, you know, this might give us a way to get off Earth." And she says, "Yeah, you know, you have a good point about that." So I mean, if you want to be pessimistic about it, then this is an optimist spin. Is that this is a way eventually, well, we'll just leave. Like, you don't like it here, you can just go somewhere else. So yeah, I just want to bring that up. It's something positive, and that's why I see any kind of stuff about the expansion of us into space, humans, and the space is a positive thing because the industry is going to grow. And the more the industry grows, the more opportunities there are for us, especially because it's private. That's even more opportunities for us. All right, so somebody asked me a question, and I want to address that. I don't want to make this one too long, but one of the things I wanted to address was, and I'll get to questions after this. I got somebody who just jumped on. Alice, how you doing? She says, "Hi, can I send you my resume and for you to look at, please? May I have your email?" So here's my email address. Let me see if I can find my contact information. Let's just, oh, I see what happened. All right, there it is right there. There's my email address. That's the best way to contact me. Let's move this down a little bit. Move it down. Boom. Best way to contact me is right here. If you happen to have purchased one of my courses, then I will definitely help you directly. That's one of the perks of purchasing it directly from Convocourses.com, is that I will help you. I don't have any kind of consulting or side things going on right now. I'm pretty new to this thing, so I haven't gotten into paid consulting or anything like that. So you have the benefit of catching me early when I'm doing it some stuff for free. So yeah, you can send me your resume, particularly if you've bought one of my courses on Convocourses.com. If you've done that, please send me your resume. I will check it out. Sometimes I'll even rearrange it for you. I'll just make suggestions on the resume to say, here's what you should do. You know, here's some keywords you should consider and things like that. But if you're interested, here, let me just show you guys something real quick. I think this is a really good course that I made a while ago, and I was super excited about it because this concept is something that's really helped me out over the years. Here's Convocourses right here, and I've got many different stuff like how to get in from scratch from cybersecurity, and how to do risk management framework. I've got free stuff here, but the one that Alice is asking me about is this one right here, resume marketing. This one I'm excited about because the techniques that I use here is exactly what has made me be able to constantly get positions and constantly get opportunities. And I still, even during the pandemic, even during an economic downturn such as the one we're in now, and even in 2008, I was still continuously getting opportunities because of these techniques that I use here. So if you're considering getting into this and you want me to directly look at your resume, go ahead and check out the resume marketing for cybersecurity and IT. I don't just talk about cybersecurity, and it can also apply to you if you're in a different industry. Really, it can apply to anyone because the techniques absolutely work. And if you want an idea of what I'm talking about, it's building a profile, it's researching, it's finding keywords, creating the resume. I walk you through all this stuff, and then I walk you through what tools I use online from CareerJet, Monster, and I also have something on interviewing, and also I will be adding more stuff to there. That just like with all my courses, I continuously add as I find new things out or something comes up, and it's a really good thing for the course. I'll add it to that course or any relevant course that I'm talking about. So go ahead and check that out. And let's get into control correlation identifier. Somebody's been asking me about it. This is the reason I have not talked about it, because this is kind of this one is a bit of a this one's very specific to Department of Defense and DISA. So that's why it's kind of it's out there. So I mean, it's very specific. But what is it? Let's just talk about what this is real quick. Let me just get rid of this information here. Give me a second. And I will be addressing questions after this, by the way. So just keep the questions coming in the chat, and I'll get to that. All right. So a CCI, or a control correlation identifier, provides a standard identifier and description for each of the singular actionable statements that comprise an information assurance IA control or IA practice. IA is just another word for security control. That's what the Department of Defense calls it. CCI, or control correlation identifier, bridges the gap between high-level policy expression and low-level technical implementation. All right, I can explain this, and there's a lot more here that it talks about here, but I can explain it in clear terms of what it means. What the CCI does is it's a code that identifies specific tasks that you have to do on Linux systems, on Windows systems, on servers, on databases, very specific things you do on each one of these operating systems, and it links these specific actions that you have to do to a risk management framework control, to a security control. So I'll give you a specific, I'm going to show you, first off, let me tell you what it is, and then I'm going to show you in greater detail what it is. And I don't know how deep we'll go, but it should be very clear what a CCI is when we're done. All right, so first off, a specific example would be audit controls. Like, let's say you're on a Windows 2010 workstation, and you've been tasked to turn on auditing on that system, meaning event logs. It's going to collect event logs for whenever somebody misauthenticates. They type in their password wrong, and it pops up as a, nope, this is not your password. It will send an event. It'll record an event on the system, and that's the control that we have to turn on, right? Well, CCI would be assigned a specific number, like say CCI 006-553 or whatever. That specific tag will be identifying a specific action, which is turning on audit logs. And that specific action ties to AU control 1 and AU control -2. So now that might not make any sense if you've never done this before, but I'm going to show you a more specific example, a couple examples. All right. Let me see if I can bring something up here. Got a couple of examples that I was just looking at, so bear with me. So this is stuff I downloaded from the site. If you want to learn more, I am on cyber.mil/STIGs/CCI. That's where I'm at right here. So if you want to just Google, you can just Google CCI STIGs, and you'll find this, right? So I'm on the DISA's, one of DISA's sites. That's where I am, and I downloaded some of the stuff from here, which is not very helpful, to be honest with you. It's not very helpful. Right now I'm looking for some examples that I actually had prepped, so just bear with me. Give me a second, and I will show you what I am talking about. Okay, here's one of them. So this is a system that had a STIG viewer ran on it. And what I want to show you here, the relevant portion, is this right here. This is a CCI. This right here. Can you guys see that? Let me make sure you can see that. Okay, yeah, you can see it. I made it bigger. CCI 001812. And what is that, right? What's the reference tells us here? It's referring to a specific event that the STIG viewer, and okay, context. A STIG is a security technical implementation guide. What it does is it walks you through all the individual things that you have to do to secure a system. And the Department of Defense, along with some other departments within the federal government and even some state organizations, they have this breakdown of everything that you need for best practice to secure a system. Whether it's turning on audit logs, making sure you have multi-factor authentication, making sure it's in a secure area and has certain physical security, making sure it has a policy, making sure you have GPOs turned on and you have a control over your shared files, network and file protocols, making sure you have certain encryption turned on and or updated. Though each one of those things, and there's thousands and thousands of others, maybe millions of others, that are individual tasks on Windows, on Red Hat, on every operating system you can think of. It has security controls, right? And so what this Department of Defense does is they create these STIGs, Security Technical Implementation Guides, that breaks down all the tasks. And they made it so that they made it easier for you to make you can make a script that automatically goes through and fixes all that stuff for you. And they actually have some scripts that you can use to actually fix that stuff automatically. But this is you're looking at some stuff from an actual STIG. And it's the rule title, the thing that it's trying to fix is on a Windows 10 system. And it's for a Windows installer will always install with elevated privileges. This must be disabled. So by default, a Windows system will automatically elevate privileges they're trying to make it easier, more user-friendly whenever you install something, so it just automatically gives elevated privileges. But the problem is that's something that can be exploited. So the rule that the STIG came up with, best practice, is to turn this off. So when you turn the system on, you installing it, you got to go in there and turn it off. Okay, so discussion. Standard user accounts must not be granted elevated privileges, right? And the reason for that is you want least privilege. What that means is AC. I'm not gonna remember. AC5, I think it is. It's either AC5 or AC6, and I don't remember which one it is. But it's the standard of least privilege, meaning you only give users, standard users, privileged users, operational users, you only give users what they need to do their job. You don't give them any more. So Windows by default, and even Linux does this, will give extra privileges that you don't necessarily need for this specific environment. Now, there may be instances where you can give more privileges. It just depends on the environment. But let's dive back into this. It says the standard user accounts must not be granted elevated privileges. Enable Windows installer to elevate privileges when installing applications. Can allow malicious persons or threat actors and applications to gain full control of the system. So if this thing is turned on, somebody with malicious intent might exploit it by elevating their own privileges. Right? So we have to disable this thing. That's what they're telling us. And then they tell us specifically how to do it, where to go in the actual system to disable always install elevated privileges. And it's telling us to go to computer configuration, administrative template, Windows component, Windows installer, and then disable always install with elevated privileges. I hope that makes sense. This right here, everything I just read is a CCI. All right, now let's talk about how CCIs, this specific task on a specific system, links to NIST, NIST 800 security compliance controls. All right, here it is right here. This reference explains it. So first of all, it has a unique identifier. Every single CCI has a unique identifier. In this case, it's CCI 001812. And what is it telling me? Like in one sentence, it explains what it is. The information system prohibits user installation of software without explicit privileged status. That's what it does. And it links to, and the references it tells you, it links to this. NIST 853, Rev 4, it's going to Rev 5 soon, CM 11.2. So CM is dealing with configuration management. Configuration management is dealing with, does our organization control the security posture of our environment? In layman's terms, what I'm saying is a CM control is having a inventory of everything that's on your network. Like, for example, in your own house, you already know you got 3 computers, right? Your kid has a computer, everybody has a cell phone, and you have a router down in the basement. That's it, right? If you suddenly were doing a scan on your network and you saw 15 other systems on your network, that would give you grounds to freak the hell out, right? Because you don't know what's going on. So in the same way, an organization needs to know everything that's going on their environment. They need to know what networking devices are on their network, all the nodes, what their IPs are, what systems they have, what vulnerabilities they have. They need to know all the software that's in their environment, right? They need to know if there's wireless, if there's other connections coming into their network. They need to know everything that's going on with their network, and that's where a CM control comes in. So CM is controlling your environment. That's all it is. Configuration management. Managing my configuration of my organization's systems, because we have very important stuff going on. That's CM. And so they're saying that this CCI links to this CM11. So if we go down the list, let's see if there's anything else I can show. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to actually bring up a STIG. This is a STIG viewer right here. This is an application you can download for free. You go to disa.mil or just Google STIG viewer. And this is an automated, it's basically a little app that will grab all of the security CCIs, everything you're supposed to do on a Windows system or on a Linux system or a Red Hat, whatever system, and says, okay, have you done these things, right? So that's what we're looking at here. So I've already taken the liberty to downloading a Windows 10 security STIG. And one of these days, I'm going to make a whole course out of how to do this. This is something I've been doing a long time, so I definitely know how to do it. So here we go, and I can break all this stuff down. It's pretty involved, especially if you're going through all these. So this right here, what you're looking at, is a Windows. Okay, this is not showing us everything, so I'm gonna make this a little smaller so you can see everything going on here. There you go. Hopefully that's clear to you. That's well, okay. There we go, right there. So right here, we're looking at Windows STIG. The last one I showed you was a screenshot. This is an actual STIG that I pulled down, not from a client of mine or anything like that. I would not show that. So just so we're clear, this is just a random STIG that I downloaded from disa.mil, and then that's what we're looking at. This is generic. So what I want to show you is this first CCI. This is CCI 000. Here's where I'm getting the number from right here. If you could see my cursor, where my cursor is pointing, right there. It's CCI 000366. Organization implements the security configuration settings. And what does it link to? There's a few of them. CM6, CM6.1, and CM6B. What are we doing? What we're doing is looking at the domain joined systems must use Windows 10 Enterprise Edition 64 version, and it goes into deeper discussion on what they're wanting as far as how to meet this particular STIG control. And each one of these, the way they break it down. So okay, let's do a little bit of a tour here. There's a couple of numbers here that I think you should know. So let's look at this one right here, this vulnerability ID. Vulnerability ID identifies each individual potential weakness of a system. It's saying that specifically the weakness on this system is X, right? And the rule name is attached to a WN Windows 10-00-00005, right? And each one of these vulnerability IDs attached to a specific weakness that has been detected that needs to be addressed, right? And so you can manually go through each one of these. So one of the things that you can do as an information system security officer, one great tool you can use, better than nothing, is to run this STIG viewer and have your system by your side, right? You have your system right here. You have your system here, and you're looking at each individual item manually, going through one by one to fix everything on your system. Another thing you can do is run a script that fixes all these things automatically, right? And I believe there's tools. I want to say that there's something called a SCC or STIG checker software that you can get from Department of Defense that has something that will fix it. It'll scan your system. You load it on your system, the affected system, and then it'll scan and see what STIGs, what individual CCIs, what vulnerability IDs are not being met on your system, and then you would go through manually and fix all those items. Now, there's a couple of different things here. How does this help you? As an information system security officer, if you don't happen to be actually installing these things, how it helps you is that if you have the report from this thing, you'll be able to know, okay, when they did a scan, they found, let me just find a whole different CCI here that we can talk about. Something that's, so let's say you're only doing documentation. You can take something like this scan, and you could, this would be like an artifact or a bit of evidence stating that this rule has been met. And how's the rule been met? You could say, right in here, it says that first of all, it's a Windows Inc. workspace configuration. A Workstation Inc. Windows Inc. workspace configured, but disallowed access above the lock. And it tells us how to secure it. Securing Windows Inc. with which contains application and features oriented towards pen computing. I have no idea what this is. I have no idea what this is. This is some pen, like the pen you enter into the system. Okay. This is making more sense to me. So this is showing us how the scan, where it would be scanned at, like what value would you be looking for. So it's saying that you would go into the registry back end of the system and then see if this was turned on. And if you're doing a scan, it would check for this item in the registry keys. That's what it's saying. That's how I'm understanding it. And it's saying the fix action is disable the convenience pin sign in. So we don't want you to be able to sign in with a pin because that's too easy to exploit. So here's how we fix that. That's what they're saying here. And it breaks it down exactly how you actually fix it. So if you were doing the documentation for this, there's a couple things you could do. You could use this to explain what the weakness is. Let's say your organization didn't do it. You could use this to break down where we're not meeting, specifically what's going on. Or if you wanted to prove that it's been fixed, you could go through and do a screenshot of this feature. Or if you were doing a scan, you could run a scan and say, look, here it is right here. The Windows 10 CC 0003885 has been met, and that covers CM7. right there. See CM7. So, and you could do that on many of these different items here that we have here. And these go from, they run the gamut from going, this one's SI16. You got some IA controls. You got different controls. So it's telling you here in the CCI, in this reference, where these map to each one of the security controls, and that's why it's super helpful. You as an information system security officer, if you happen to be one, you're looking for, how can I meet these security controls? How does our organization meet this particular security control? So this is just one way. If you happen to have a Windows system or a Linux or whatever it is, right? Because they have these for every kind of system. All the main systems are covered by the STIGs. You can use this information to figure out if you guys are meeting this particular control, or if you're not meeting control, and how to fix it. So I hope that makes sense. I kind of feel like we kind of went overboard with it, but at some point, what I would like to do is actually take a system and secure the system using the STIGs, using the SCC tools and everything. But that'll be a whole course, because all that stuff takes a bit of time and setup and all that kind of stuff. I'm actually setting up some stuff on the back end here, but it's going to take me a while to set all that stuff up. So if there's any questions, we can address those. But while you guys are coming up with questions, I would like to show you something else real quick. Another very useful thing with having a matrix, or having these individual vulnerability IDs and CCIs and all these things, or how they all come together, is beautiful, because there's something else where these same controls map to a more commercialized version of controls, which is CIS benchmark controls. These controls are used by a lot of private industry stuff. Private industries, some banks, and some other industries actually use these controls rather than the NIST controls.